All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Alecria Garcia. I am the president of the Art History Society, and it is my pleasure to present you to all our wonderful officers of the Art History Society as we go to this graduate school workshop. Today, we're going to be talking about the different paths of graduate school, how you get there, what it's like to be in a program, and the opportunities that you can have after once you're involved in a graduate school program. Today, I have with me our wonderful members of the Art History Society, as well as some guests as well. We're so lucky to have here. And again, my name is Alecria Garcia. I'm the president. Marcos Lopez is our vice president. And we have Sara Salcido, who is our treasurer. And we have Gabriel Avila, who is our secretary. And we have our wonderful guest lecturers, Lara Saikali, who is also a member of the Art History Society. And we have another wonderful guest who is Jonas. He was part of our Art History Society group last year and has since graduated and is exploring wonderful new worlds of art. And without further ado, welcome. How's everyone feeling? I know it's been a while and finals is approaching, but I'm so happy you all can be here. And I wanted to start with asking, and anyone can answer, what made you all think about starting graduate school, or what makes you think you want to start graduate school?
Can I go first?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
What made me want to go to graduate school was to be able to do more research into the field that I'm currently studying, because it wasn't really talked about a lot. And I've always wanted to be a professor. And since you have to have a master's degree to become a professor, I said, well, I'll just go to grad school after I get my BA.
Go ahead, Gabriel.
Yeah, actually, I never even thought that I would even be able to do a master's program. But it was when I started really getting into my capstone classes, one of my advisors told me that she said that, she saw my passion for art history and really enjoying it. So she said, what you have, I can't teach you, what the passion you have for art history can't be taught. However, the technicalities are something you're going to need if you want to get to the next level. And then she said, your writing sucks, get better at it, and then you can go to grad school and be an incredible professor. So I'm really happy about that.
Yes, Sara.
I think I decided I wanted to go to grad school in not my undergrad, actually when I went to junior college. So I remember it was my first art history professor, and he talked about how he got his master's, and I was like, well, I want to be a professor, so I need to get my master's. So basically I knew right away that I was going to get it. And then as I got closer to graduating at Fullerton, Cal State Fullerton. I went to Fullerton Junior College and Cal State Fullerton. My professor was like, oh, you need to go. Like, that's something that's going to be really important. And if you want to make the difference that you could make, then grad school is obviously the next step. So that's how I knew.
Can I go, I guess?
Go for it.
So I just graduated LACC in June, and I had this amazing art history professor, Elizabeth Lopez. She has her PhD, and I don't know, she was like really inspiring, because I have a background in fashion, like marketing and all that, but I worked in the industry for years and it was really phony and fake, and it didn't really bring me meaning in life anymore. So I wanted to see what else I could do, and I thought art history was a good thing because obviously I love art, and I feel like it encapsulates almost everything. It's not just, one thing, right? And I'm the first to graduate school and the first to go to college in my family. So I feel like I have to get a master's because it allows me to be, more competitive, especially with the field the way it is now, and I'm not exactly sure what I want to do with the master's. Like, I don't see myself teaching right at first, but I feel like it would be something good to fall back on when I get older. but definitely research, you know, traveling and all that stuff.
Thank you for sharing that. No, I know exactly how you feel. I was in a bunch of different fields in my undergrad, and it finally took me. I was in the middle of a field in Belize washing artifacts, and this wonderful English. She was already in her master's program. She had the most English name possible. Her name was Rosamond Fitzmaurice. She told me. She asked me what did I want to do, and I was like, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, no, like for graduate school. And I hadn't even thought of it at that point. All I had known was digging, and I was just gonna. I thought I'd just dig forever. I thought that I would be fine with that, and that I didn't realize it. It was only because she asked me that I realized I was stuck in what I was doing for so long that I didn't even consider any kind of change whatsoever. And that is what graduate school was for me. It was a new journey, a new experience, and a chance at I already feel like I'm making the most of experience because I already have these amazing people near me, and I love their ideas and I love them as people. And then they're so smart. Everyone is so smart. That's one of the most amazing things I found in my graduate school is that you can really connect with all the people, no matter what they're studying, no matter what they're doing, because the root of all of that is that passion in sitting there. And it's really amazing what you can see people grow and become and what they want to do. Does anyone else want to share it all? If not, we are going to start. All right, cool. But yeah, so this is going to be a workshop. So it's going to be different parts. Each member and guest is going to present a certain section of their graduate school workshop, and it's going to be either their experience, some information about the topics that they're specifically studying for, as well as, their own spin on it, because it's really important that when you go into graduate school, you realize that this journey is all about you as a person. So you're going to hear different testimonials as well as different experiences that these amazing people have had in their programs. And I'd like to introduce our first speaker. His name is Gabriel Avila. He is our resident genius and amazing human being who very much is akin to art history, his love for museum work, and he has the most amazing dreams possible. And I would like to have him share them with you. Go ahead, Gabriel.
I don't even know what to say to that. Thank you so much. Oh my God. That's like, I'm good at remembering stuff. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present. I really appreciate the Art Historical Society for allowing this kind of vehicle of information, because there are a lot of students, and I can say I was one myself, where, you know, I didn't know that I could make a career out of art history or just art in general. And so I'm really excited about the fact that there are people who are interested in going to the next level, but also that there is a niche, there is a particular crowd that is interested in what we do. So I'm glad that we can add a little to it. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can see my PowerPoint presentation, which will be about wanting to go to grad school. Okay, sorry about that. All right, here we go. So this is called, So You Want to Go to Grad School, eh? Presented by the Art Historical Society and with Mr. Professor Manuel Aguilar Moreno as our advisor. I'd like to start. So let me give you a little anecdote. This was told to me when I was interested in applying to grad school. My advisor said, just because you're interested doesn't mean you are qualified. And I know that may sound like a deterrent, but instead it was quite the inspirational quote for me, because it really set the difference between what we think we want and what we know we need to do. So I'll get into this idea of interest and qualified as we go on through our lecture. If you have any questions, please write them down or hold them until the end so that we can, be cohesive with this lecture. So what grad school? Well, graduate school is that qualification that you need in order to advance your field your studies or your fields of interest, because it challenges you to think beyond the parameters of a BA or a BS education. It inspires you to go further into your field and actually make a contribution. As you know, a graduate program, a graduate degree requires that you present a thesis. And in that thesis, what you're saying is, I am making a contribution to my field. I am presenting something new, a new thought, a new idea. This establishes your career and your reputation on a different level, which leads to academic, artistic recognition. And of course, it furthers your own interests and it demands more of your own academic growth. So now that you know, where do you find this information? How do you find out? Where do you go to find out about grad school? Well, I mean, really, the research is you go to the schools, you go to the programs that highlight your interests. If you're interested in doing social work, you might look into Stanford or Berkeley. If you're interested in law, you might look into Loyola or UCLA. If you're interested in art history, you might look into Cal State LA, Long Beach, UC Santa Barbara. Look into the graduate school websites, see what lists of degrees and programs they have. You'll be able to see in those websites the admissions program, the eligibility, the application process, what you should follow up on and what you should follow through with. So the question then is, well, who decides grad school is for me? The first person that decides that is you. You gotta want it. You gotta wanna do it. If you're the one that really wants it, then you'll make it happen. Also, your future professors, and what we mean by this is that you want to research into the school you're interested in, and check what those professors are doing, what work are they presenting, so that it matches to your likes and to your needs, right? You also want to think about your future career. Ultimately, what do you want to do with your career? Do you want to be a professor? Do you want to be a museum studies curator? Do you want to be a journalist? What do you feel like you want to achieve? So that will definitely help you decide what schools you want to go to for your grad program. If you're interested in being a professor, obviously your future students. If you want to teach at community college level, if you want to teach at a university level as an adjunct professor or as a tenured professor, you definitely have to think about where your program is going to fit best for your needs. And then again, at the end of the day, who decides? Well, that person is you. You decide that you are the driver of that vehicle. So what can you do? What can I do? I mean, first things first, research, right? Definitely look into the schools, break down, make a list, 5 to 10 schools that you might be interested in, and then take away, the things that will work for you and the things that might not work for you. Part of this is like, will you be living near where you normally live? Will you be having to move? Will you be having to, accommodate for transportation, traffic, all of the things, even as far as down as like, what kind of meal plans do they have at that school? Is there something that you're attracted to that you like about the environment where you're going to be? So plan accordingly. Visit campuses, look at websites, ask alumni and current students about their experiences, because that'll definitely tell you whether you think it's a great school or not. For instance, I can tell you that Cal State Long Beach has a beautiful campus, but it's mainly a commuter campus. There's not a lot of, people that stay there, versus, let's say, UCLA has a huge fraternity sorority experience. And if that's something that you think you want to do, where you want to live on campus while you're doing your program, well, those are factors that you need to consider. Follow up with departments. Sometimes they will have newsletters, or they'll have certain announcements that will give you an insight as to what they're currently working on and how you can really develop from that. Because sometimes the exhibitions or the programs that they have for your graduate program might be better based on what you know they're already focusing on. If their focus is a lot more theoretical, then you don't want to, you want to apply to somewhere where it's practical. If it's somewhere that's practical, then you want to be theoretical. It really depends on the program that you choose. And so for the sake of our time, I will just say that you can definitely find a lot of this information at the Graduate Resource Center and the Office of Graduate Studies here for Cal State LA. I am part of the Graduate Resource Center, so I have more information if you'd like, but you can definitely go to calstatela.edu for graduate studies. And any questions that you may have, feel free to type them on the chat or ask them, or if they come up later, you can definitely contact us. We have an Art Historical Society email that you can reach us. So you have any questions, or later reference this in our YouTube channel where we'll be uploading this presentation. Thank you so much.
Yay.
Thank you, Gabriel, as always. Thank you so much for putting that together. I know the applying to graduate school, just hearing that sentence about like 5 years ago would have given me a small heart attack, because it was the most intimidating thing I'd ever thought existed. So thank you so much for breaking that down for us and really giving us the gritty details and trying to push us forward and trying to do that. And I really also want to introduce our next presenter. Her name is Sara Salcido. She is an amazing art historian and researcher in Mesoamerican art, especially in Chicano activism. She is an accomplished artist, and she is treasurer of the Art History Society. She will be talking about statements, and that will be part of the graduate school process in getting and applying. So here is Sara Salcido.
All these compliments. Now I know how Gabriel feels. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Alecria. Let me get the share screen. There we go. Well, hello, folks. So today I'll be talking about statement of purposes. Let me just get to the slideshow right here. Can you all see it? Perfect. So I'll be speaking about how to approach your statement of purpose. So when it comes to a statement of purpose, you're probably asking, what is this? Honestly, I didn't know what a statement of purpose was until I was applying to grad school. My professor, my mentor at the time at Cal State Fullerton was like, okay, so the biggest selling point is going to be your statement of purpose. I was like, my what? She's like, a whole new essay you have to write. So what is a statement of purpose? Typically, a statement of purpose is a 1 to 2 page essay describing what you want to accomplish or your purpose during your graduate program. Word and page count may vary depending on the school. So whatever program you decide to apply to, do make sure that you do check their website to make sure that you're writing the appropriate amount of pages / words. When I was applying and writing mine, I was told that for the programs that 1 page is best. I was told there was some places that I heard that if it was over that 1 page, they were just going to throw it away. That was too much reading, or they're not just going to read, or they're not going to read the entire thing. Harsh, but good to know. So it's the steps to take. Some great points that Gabriel made during his presentation is have an idea of what you want to specialize in for your program while you're before you actually go into seeing what schools you want to apply to. Know what you want to do for this program and make sure that the schools you apply to can help to get to wherever that you want to go, what you want to research, what you want your thesis to be, or if you think that these professors, after you've done the research, how can they amplify and help you get to where you want to go, basically. 2, I think is the biggest selling point to making your statement of purpose is learn how to sell yourself. Know what you're going to bring to the table while applying to schools. When it comes to the specific programs, think of it like an interview. You want to show your best attributes to the school. Even though you're applying to them, they should want you. Don't be afraid to hype yourself up as the as well as the program in a way. So what I'm trying to say is, when you're applying, know that you're selling yourself. This is what I'm going to bring to the table. Like in my during my experience, I knew I wanted to do Mesoamerican studies and incorporate it with activism. So I talked about my experiences as a first generation, not only college graduate, but also American, and how I'm passionate about Chicano art, but also Mesoamerican art, and how I would like to tie that in together. And I knew that Cal State LA was going to be the best program for me. My mentor, Joanna Rush at Cal State Fullerton, told me that this was the only school I should apply to, basically. The minute I told her Mesoamerican studies, she was like, look no further, Cal State LA. Luckily for me, she knew the head, which was Professor Manuel Aguilar. She already knew him, and she said, you're going to speak to him, and trust me, you're going to want to go here. You could look at other schools, which I did. I looked at UC Riverside because I knew they had a good Chicano program that was building. And also, I also considered UCLA as well. But she said, once you meet Profe, look no further. And luckily, I was able to set up an interview, and she was completely right. So it's awesome to have mentors if you can, or professors that you're really close to in your undergrad program that know you and know your goals, and also know your style of how you interact with professors. Don't be afraid to ask professors what certain schools are like. They all know each other. They work with each other, whether it's symposiums or teaching. So don't be afraid to ask other professors from your undergrad school what schools you think would work best for you, because if they know you well, they should have a good idea. So luckily, that's what happened for me. And also, while writing this could also trickle into step 3, is have a second pair of eyes and don't rush while writing your statement of purpose. So make sure, take your time while writing this, because goals could change and so could ideas. So I recommend writing this months in advance. Like I said, your goals can change after you did some research, and also your ideas of what schools can change as well. You could incorporate just one school because you're set onto there, and then that's what you do your entire statement of purpose on, and then you realize, wait, this school's better. Then you have to change it all over again. So also keep it a little on the vague side unless you for sure are just going to apply to one school. And then what I mean by a second pair of eyes, have someone that knows you and your goals to read your statement of purpose while you're writing it, just so they could see that you're putting in exactly what you want and you're not selling yourself short, because it is hard to write about yourself. It's kind of hard to think like, what do I want? It's like when someone asks you, what's your favorite hobby? And then you just blank out and you're like, wait, what are my hobbies? Do I know anything? Do I know how to do anything? It kind of comes like that. Like you're sitting in front of a blank page, like a blank screen, and you're like, what is my purpose? It is hard. So it is nice to have, if not a second pair of eyes, 5 pairs of eyes, just anyone that you think knows you the best and your goals. I think it's the best way to approach this, and have them read it and make sure that you are not, one, selling yourself short, and make sure that this school is gonna regret not choosing you. You're gonna make them choose you, basically. So what do you write into your statement of purpose? So it's kind of incorporating some things that I just mentioned earlier. Introduce yourself, your interests and your motivations. This goes back to selling yourself. You have to see what motivates you and what's going to make you apply to grad school. It's also, you could talk about, like how I mentioned earlier, my motivations was being a first generation college graduate and American. So I talked about how that motivated me, how my culture motivates me, how the multiple years of school I did motivated me as well. I even talked about me having ADD, which was a big reason why I took so long in school. I didn't think I could do well in school until I found art history. And I mentioned that as well. Like art history is what made me come alive in my academic life. And now it is my life in my master's program. To summarize your undergraduate and previous graduate career. So discuss any programs that you were involved in, if you studied abroad, any internships, if you got awards, anything that you think is going to let the school know that you had experience and that you're willing to push further into your studies and into your research. And then I think part 3 and 4 could kind of go together. So one is to discuss your relevance of your recent and current activities. So how do your interests that you talked about earlier and that your career as an undergraduate or previous graduate career ties together? How can they convey what you want to do? So as I mentioned before, I'm passionate about Mesoamerican art and activism. I talked about how I studied abroad in Mexico and how I saw Mesoamerican works, but how I live in California and saw Chicano activism and how they tie together and how Chicanos use Mesoamerican art into their works. So I was using how my interest and my career blended and made this relevance basically. And how I elaborated into part 4, how I want to push further into that research and to study that into my academic interest into this program. And trying to see how the school can amplify what I want to research. And also the school's gonna wanna push you to research that as well. If they're interested in what you're interested in, you're for sure going to have a good experience, I believe, because once I spoke to Profe and to other professors for what I would like to do my thesis on, which meant they're all for it, and they also have background in it, which really helps amplify not only me, but also the professors in the school and us all working together. And that is it. Thank you so much. Hopefully this helps with the statement of purpose. As I said, just take your time and don't sell yourself short. You got this. So good luck. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sada. Thank you so much. Your message is really important, especially for any time. It doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter what experience you have. In pushing yourself forward and presenting your best self, that is a lot of work. And it's always good to realize where your support is and how you can handle that and what it really takes to actually get started in that admission process. Everyone likes to look at the door that you're standing in front of and being, wow, it must be so great on the other side. But it takes so much courage just to even put your hand on the doorknob and just push it open as hard as you can. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
And next, I would like to present our guest, Jonas. He is a recent Cal State LA graduate, receiver of the Fulbright Scholarship, and a prolific jack of all trades artist in photography, art history, and the fine arts. And he's going to be presenting on how his process of getting his Master of Fine Arts and his own artistic journey in doing so.
Great, thank you. Oh, I'm really happy to be here. And Sarah, thanks for talking about statement of purpose. I was thinking about my purpose in starting school. And, you know, I had reached a point in my career, I finished undergraduate, I got my bachelor's in 1989. And so I was thinking I had a career in all kinds of art, illustration, design, art direction, a corporate career. But the thing that never changed is I was always teaching. Every time I lost a job, I realized, yeah, but I'm still teaching a class, you know? And so I would keep reinventing myself in my career, but I was always teaching. And I thought, why don't I just teach? Why do I keep looking for that other career? So I saw a job offer at Cal State LA for a photography professor. And I had just done maybe 10 years of photography, various projects that were really well received. And I felt I had good experience, and the description said you must have an MFA or equivalent. And it says very specifically, you don't have to have an MFA in photography. So I thought, oh, this wording is a little strange. I'm going to call and try to understand what that means. And who picked up the phone was Rebecca Davis, the chair of the art department. And she said, well, what it means is you don't have to have an MFA in photography, but you have to have an MFA. I said, oh, that's too bad. She goes, yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of experience, but why don't you get your MFA? And if you come down here, I'm happy to give you a tour. And she did. She gave me this amazing tour. She was very kind. And I thought, oh, I think this is the place I want to give this place a try, you know. And there are a lot of perks about Cal State LA too. I'm from Southern California, and you know, it was affordable, it was accessible. It was a program that I could probably finish in 2 years if I really applied myself. So I did write my statement of purpose, which basically said that I'm an artist who's inspired by his family and his faith and his heritage. What I really liked about Cal State LA was there's a lot of heritage, right? And I didn't feel alone, you know, and I'm not Mexican American or Latin American or have those roots, but I'm first generation Lithuanian, and my parents were refugees, and I had a lot to talk about with my colleagues. So I want to share some photos of my art, but let's see, do I have capabilities to do that yet?
Yes, you should.
Okay, let's see. Well, when I go to share screen, desktop, there we go. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Wonderful. So I wanted to share photos of my work, but really it's not about my work, it's about my journey, right? And when I came to school, I was assigned a studio, FA 115, and this is what it looked like when I arrived. It was an empty room with empty easels and tables, and I had a blank canvas. And the way the graduate studies worked was I was assigned an advisor, and I had to choose a direction, right? And I initially thought I'd be doing photography, but the photography professor had just been hired and he was getting his feet wet. So I opted for new genres with my advisor, Robert Martin, which was basically a catch-all. I was able to work as an interdisciplinary artist, work in all medium. And he said, just go, just do what you want to do. You're an artist who knows where he's coming from. Let's see where you can go, you know. So I hadn't painted in 25 years. I thought, let's get out of my comfort zone and see what I can do. And I started painting, and I started filling up the studio. And I tried different things, different configurations of the room. I started presenting my work to the committee. I had 3 other professors on my committee. And they stopped me and they said, you're a new genres candidate, but we're seeing a lot of painting. Do you want to be a painting candidate or do you want to be a new genres candidate? So the next time we meet with you, we want to see new things, something different. So I try not to let them down. And I started to work in all medium. This is a sketch of a sculpture and installation I was working on that revolved around sound, right? And you started to see new objects and things in my studio. And I started experimenting with sculpture. I'd never made a mold before. I'd never done anything like this. And now I had treasure. And it felt good to try something different. Here's a video I made. It's about how the world gets ground up and disappears. I never thought I'd be doing that. Animation. You know, one of the things I did is I tried to say yes all the time, because what's the alternative? You know, if I say yes, I start to expand and grow. And even during the break at school, I said, yes, I'm going to try this artist in residence. And I took a trip to Idaho to live with the nuns in the monastery in Cottonwood, you know. And I brought back that experience back to the classroom, into my studio, and it helped me fill up the space. And even here on the bottom left, you can see I made a maquette of my thesis show I was preparing for during the time of Corona. And essentially, like most programs, the campus got closed down. But my professor, Mika Cho, she had a relationship with Hauser and Wirth Gallery in Los Angeles and asked the graduate students to write proposals to fill a space there. And that's what I did here. You can see that. And we pushed it further and I got accepted. And I got to have a show albeit during Corona. But, you know, for a guy who started with a blank room, a blank canvas, now I have this installation in this world-class gallery. And I think it's mostly because I started to say yes and try different things. I hadn't painted in 25 years, you know? So I wish the same for you, you know, and I really want to make it clear, I didn't get here by myself. And probably the most valuable help I had was two groups. One was the Art History Society, who I would really thought of just as my pals, my classmates. And we would have a lot of robust discussions. And the one thing I really noticed was, ironically, it wasn't relating as much to the art students because they were always talking about medium, you know, oh, what kind of paint are you using? What's on sale at the art store, you know? Or did you finish writing that thing? There's a lot of homework, you know. But when I talked to the art history students, they were traveling both physically and mentally and spiritually. And we would talk about deep matters. And we would talk about how can I contextualize this work in history? What are the cultural ramifications of this and that, you know? I think that made me a better artist, frankly, you know, and it's put me more in that direction with my art. My art is research-based. I don't start from thin air. I like to dig deep and have a firm understanding of what I'm doing, you know. And then I also want to say, you know, I made good relationships with my professors. I took the opportunity to apply for that Fulbright scholarship. And, you know, who were the people who wrote me recommendations? It was these professors, you know. Sometimes we complain about them, but they came through for me, you know. Not too long ago, I mentioned that, you know, letters of recommendations, and even this group here said, oh, we would write you one and we would all sign it together as a petition. So that's the kind of support that I got at Cal State LA. And I walked into a blank room, and if you said, hey, 2 years from now, what do you think this is going to look like? You know, not in my wildest dreams, you know. So I was really glad that I just suited up, showed up, did the footwork, said yes, try to stay humble and stay out of the results. And I had a great experience. So I'm happy to answer any questions at the end if it helps. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You said it so perfectly. I know we already told you this before, but you said it so perfectly. And I realize now in your presentation, it is so much about being present in that journey and then just seeing where it takes you. And it's very much, you have to say yes. You have to say, I can do it. And you have to say yes to yourself as to other people, because that shows them who you are and that passion that you want to have. Even if you don't know what your passion is yet, even if you're discovering it yourself. Thank you so much for telling us about your journey, Jonas. Thank you so much. And yes, we will sign that petition anytime. So just tell us when. Oh, yes, Gabriel.
So thank you, Jonas, for that incredible presentation. My question is did you feel at some point that this became a sort of organic process, or did you discover that, or were you like consistent about like saying, no, I will be determined, you know, I will be persistent in making sure that this is what I want? Or did you just notice that it became an organic process? Like how did you feel, and what happened when you realized it? What was your like aha moment?
I think I used to walk around asking myself or others, is this good? Is this work good enough? Is it, you know, and rather than just do it, you know. And so rather than seeking approvals, you know, because inherently I'm the same person. I didn't change I'm still inspired by my family, my heritage, and my faith, you know. But trusting in the professors, trusting in the system, trusting in the work is what I try to maintain. And I don't know if that's organic, but you know, does that answer your question? Yeah, I think that was my approach.
Thank you. And yeah, oh, don't worry, we'll have a section at the end of everyone presenting where everyone can ask more in-depth questions or anything that they'd like. At this moment, I would like to present our new presenters. Is Marcos Lopez. He is our current graduate at Salcido LA. He's focusing on uniting art and technology into something incredibly new. And he is our dedicated vice president of the Art History Society. And he is partnered with our lovely current graduate student, Lara Sakali, who is incredibly well-read in both contemporary and ancient art and an amazing member of the Art History Society. And they will both be speaking on the different internships and careers you can find, as well as their personal experiences in working in art galleries. And I'm going to give you the helm, Marcos.
Thank you, Alegria. And again, following Gabriel, thank you, Jonas, for giving us a depth of your journey in art. You know, I think it's wonderful that you kind of explain that to us. But yeah, I'm going to be discussing about the career paths in art and what are the possibilities for you is if you are looking in graduate studies, there is a path after that that you can pursue. I'm going to begin with sharing my screen. And like Alegria mentioned, I will have also Lara as a co-host in this conversation. Go back, sorry. So let me begin this topic about if you do wish to pursue your major in graduate school in art, whether that's art history, studio, or something more specific, and you wish to apply after that to an institution, whether that is a gallery or museum, there's certain things that they do look forward into in an art major student. So one of them is the ability to adapt to any environment, condition. Another important skill is to have excellent communication skills, both verbal and written. Oftentimes these institutions, I'm currently working for art gallery, and I do heavily do some written work for them. Sometimes I do conference for them or meetings. So it's often a good skill set to have in hand. If you do go forward in graduate school, it's like enhance those skills as much as you can, because you will use them in the real world. Another thing that they do also require is to have an experience in working in an art studio, whether that's you work for an artist, or you work previously in another gallery or a museum, or in a related field within that. And then you have with at least about 2 to 3 years working in that field. That way they know that you have some sort of experience, and then you are comfortable in that environment. Lara, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah. So for the ability to adapt any environment and condition, I do have a couple of examples at the end in jobs descriptions.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was a VSA at Marciano Art Foundation, I had to be able to stand for long periods of time and to be able to deal with a busy environment.
Mm-hmm.
That also goes with being a gallery assistant. You're going to have to do multitasks in a fast-paced environment, especially in a small gallery where you're doing multiple things. And, you have to be able to work adequately and to keep, maintain composure while you're under pressure.
I agree. So how do you look for these job opportunities in art galleries, museums, or a specific field? One key thing to note is always network. Networking will get you many places. These networking things occur when you attend events, art openings, symposiums, or any other art event. And always maintain communications with your teachers, advisors, employers, or friends. Like, hey, like always be in touch with them and maintain that conversation with them that you're of your interest, but also what you want to pursue in.
Yeah, like Marco said, networking is very key in anything, but the art world, from experience, networking has helped me a lot get my foot in the door, get my name circulating within the art world to potentially, get an opportunity, either internship or paid opportunity in the art world. And, openings, can be tough for some people, but they really do help, one kind of get an experience of what the art world is like in the real world.
Right.
And, even art talks help. You're meeting people that are not only in the industry, but, share the same interests as you. And, you could, meet a potential employer or gain an opportunity at events like an art talk or an opening, or, sometimes even, any event like that. Networking is very important.
All right. Yeah, and to add to that, to what Lana said, it's familiarize yourself with these faces and names, because they'll definitely reappear again when you attend another event. It's like, I've seen that person before, or you've seen familiar faces. So always get to, be exposed to these people, because they will definitely will be around you. Another thing that I do want to point out is always do your research. If you're looking to apply for a specific gallery or museum or institution, visit their website directly. Just log in and search their page and look if they have any career opportunities available, whether that's being an assistant or if they have any internships or any other opportunities. And always take note what their programming is, whether that's curatorial, how their collection is handled, what is their ethos, and also like what is the history behind it. If you're applying for a gallery, for example, you want to take a look at their artist roster. Like, how does is their artist roster is something that you want to, is it something that you want to be more in touch with? You want to invest your time and your graduate studies into something more more specific into that field. And lastly, always inquire, which means like always ask friends, teachers, or submit directly your inquiry to that institution that you want to apply for. It's always getting your foot in the door, like Lada said. It's like being available.
Yeah. When I was, applying to be a gallery assistant at CSUN Art Galleries when I was an undergrad, I remember just asking the gallery director, and I got hired on the spot. And, it goes to show sometimes inquiring can lead to an opportunity or even being hired on a spot, internship or a paid gig. It's always good to inquire. You could even email the gallery and say, hey, do you have any internship opportunities? Or, with me, I was applying for the lace apprenticeship, and I asked a former colleague of mine who's currently working there if there are any apprenticeships. And he talked and he said, if there is one, I will let you know. And sure enough, one came up, and he messaged me and let me know that there was an apprenticeship. So it's also part of networking as well, and maintaining that relationship with people that you've once worked with in the past.
What are the career paths in the art? There are various fields of jobs out there that you can specifically go for, which I have listed them here. But I do believe that there will keep growing as time goes, because there's so many things that we can study within the art field. But this is just like a consolidated list that I put together though. But yeah, it's always, if you're going grad school and you want to focus on something more specific, whether that's sales related or more collection related or more academic related, there's always an opportunity or door for you available after grad school. But it's always important to note that always, like I said in my previous slide, maintain those relationships, networking, and always inquire, because there was something that will come up in the future for you.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off, Marcos, but social media is very popular and in demand right now in the art world. I have seen various job ads related to the art field for social media or social media manager or something like that. Because when I was an intern at a gallery in Santa Monica, I had to monitor social media posts. I had to write content for the social media. I had to schedule social media posts. I, also had to take pictures for Instagram. So, like many establishments, they're trying to keep their reputation and gain traction. And galleries and museums, are utilizing social media to give themselves exposure and to get people to visit their institution. So they do have somebody to do that. And also, I've had, okay, go on, Marcos. Yeah, so this one is just examples of job ads that I've seen on websites like Arts for LA or even the California Arts Council. A gallery assistant job at MMB Gallery, applicants must be able to multitask and work well within a fast-paced environment, as meeting multiple deadlines is the standard and not an exception. So again, you have to be able to adapt to certain environments. For example, when you're a preparator, you have to be able to lift, let's say 20 pounds. You've got to be on your feet, you've got to be able to climb the ladder. And also when you're a gallery assistant, or, even a grant writer, you have to maintain composure in a high pressure environment. You have to be able to work in a fast paced environment. Like I said before, as a gallery attendant in a museum, you have to be able to handle a busy environment. You have to be able to deal with many members of the public coming into, the museum. And also grant writer at Building Bridges Art Gallery. Again, it goes back to written communication and verbal skills. So here it says the grant writer will write coherent, organized, and compelling proposals. You will apply your knowledge of fundraising methods and plans to reach income goals. You will collaborate with team members in the organization to assist with other fundraising projects and develop relationships and positive communication with potential funders. Candidate needs to write well, have proficient knowledge of fundraising methods, and be committed to our mission. Preferred applicants are deadline-driven team players with outstanding multitasking abilities. Again, the writing and communications, feature, it's not just writing a press release or about the art that's on exhibit. Sometimes you're going to be asking donors for money, and that organization is going to expect you, the grant writer, to be able to persuade donors to donate, because many of these institutions like LACMA nonprofit rely on donors to fund their museum. So they would have a grant writer to write out a proposal to get funding for an exhibit, or even just keep the institution up and running.
Yeah, thank you, Lara, for sharing your experience in the art world, and how that looks like in the real world, and how can you apply that. I think is really interesting. And like I said, it's always like graduate school it's a refining moment that you should refine your writing skills, because you definitely would use that in the field that you want to apply for. But yeah, if anyone has any specific questions related to this topic, please type them down in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer that, after this workshop is completed. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to us.
Thank you, guys.
No, thank you for presenting. That was really great. That was honestly, these are the questions I get asked the most. It's like, I have this piece of paper. What do I do with it now? Or like, I'm trying to get my piece of paper. What can I do in the meantime to make it look even better? And thank you all so much for giving real life value to these people who are just artists trying to get into these galleries, who are art educators trying to make a difference in these young kids' lives, or they're trying to be into the art world itself and be in a praise and try and get that gallery experience. Thank you both so much for giving us that real world experience, because that is so important.
My pleasure. Okay.
And then last but not least, it's me. My name is Alecria. You guys are so sweet. My name is Alecria Garcia. I am the president of the Art History Society. I have been blessed to work with these amazing, wonderful people, whether as members or guests or as very good friends. Thank you all so much for coming. I am a graduate student at Cal State LA and a working archaeologist. I'm trying to develop a multidisciplinary approach to combining art history, archaeology, the fine arts, art in itself, and anthropology as a whole into like a national education reformation. And I'm trying my best. God only knows when it'll happen, but that's what I'm going for. And today I'm going to be talking to you about something that usually isn't talked about as part of the graduate school or undergraduate school of life. It just depends on the opportunity. I'm going to be talking to you about call for papers and what that necessarily means. Can you all see my screen? Great. It's thinking about it. There we go. Let's see. All right. So again, I'm going to be talking about call for papers and what that means as part of the graduate school workshop. So call for papers, they're called CFPs, call for papers or call for proposals, are when a professional organization or a similar body asks people to submit original scholarly articles for review and consideration of publication. So essentially, they're going to be essay prompts or journal topics or themes, and they're going to be asking these scholars questions. And hopefully as scholars, you're going to be pushing your work out there, your research, and having it published, reviewed, or basically introduced to the academic community as new official research. And they can be in the form of general topics or themes, or even specific academic communities. For example, as you see the picture below, that's specifically for the Mesoamerica meetings. So in this specific call for papers, they're asking for the center and the four corners. So it's going to be a general theme about the cosmology and spatial of architecture, of Mesoamerican thought. These topics can go from anything from how does your average Mesoamericanist think about space as like a spatial form to, what are the specific writing systems of the Upper Belize area? It can be very general to very specific. But in general, they give these call for papers give folks opportunities to publish their work and communicate about the latest research with other people in their academic community. And they're made for lots of things. They're made for conferences, journals, and organizations, and they usually invite submissions for research papers. And anyone with expertise in the field will be able to submit their work. That means you could be an undergraduate, you can be a graduate. As long as you have some experience, you have that on paper, and you hand it to them when you're giving your proposal, you can, in every way, shape, and form, submit these papers, call for papers. And even though CFPs, they're really known in the scientific and medical communities, there are a lot of opportunities to find CFPs for art history, art, archaeology, any topics really. So we're going to be talking about some of the types of CFPs. I know that's a lot of information, but all in all, you just need to know these three types: the conferences, scholarly journals, and prizes. And in each box, I'm showing you a kind of general gist of what's going to be in that process of a conference or a scholarly journal or prize, and what it looks like you're going to be able to submit to these people, for these organizers. So for conferences, the submission process really depends on your prompt. So usually conferences, you have to know when and where they are. Sometimes they require you to attend. But even before COVID, there are many virtual conferences as well. You're going to need to have the description of the conference. And this usually includes like a list of topics or overall themes that the conference organizers are most interested in. So going back to that other example before, they could be talking about what was defining sacred space in Mesoamerica. That could be anything from architectural buildings. That could be anything in how they thought of themselves in place of the universe. That could be in anything how they thought of themselves in themselves. It just depends on the kind of theme and how big the organizers make it. And for the nitty gritty stuff, the usual formatting are paper submissions. So you'd give individual papers, something around like a proposal or an abstract, around 250 words, as well as a one-page CV. A CV is similar to a resume, but is a very in-depth, comprehensive work history that shows your work experience as well as your research experience. You can also have these things called panel submissions. This is basically multiple paper submissions. So you have multiple participants, meaning multiple paper proposals, and you're going to be handing them this docket of information that's going to be the paper proposals themselves, a short description of the theme, and a one-page CV for all participants so they know who wrote what and why they wrote that. And of course, the most important part for all three of these is the application deadline. You always need to know when your deadline is. And even if you know the deadline, plan for 3 days before that. You always want to be ready before, because some of these applications are mail-ins, some of them are emails, some of them are visual presentations. It all just depends on what the conference wants. And then we have scholarly journals. Scholarly journals are the paperback. They're the kind of paperback version of these little conferences presentations. You're going to need the title of the special issue, the journal, and its editors. And so what that means is that you're going to be going to a lot of different, you're going to having to get your paper through a lot of audience members. It's going to be filtered and filtered and filtered even more than the actual conference themselves, because it's going to be writing about a very specific theme, about a very specific issue. And it can be anything that is monthly, bi-weekly, annually. It just depends on the journal itself. And proposal submission guidelines, it'll look like an abstract proposal of 500 words. Got to pay attention to that word usage as well as the amount of words you're using, because they can throw away some of the proposals just like that, depending on how strict they are for that word count. And you're also going to have a one-page CV or a short biography. Sometimes they actually include that in your article. So it'll be like your own little panel in a magazine. You'll have your article, your scholarly article, and then you'll have your little biography and CV of yourself in the corner. And again, deadline to apply, there's going to be different deadlines depending on what kind of journal it is. Sometimes, they have different time, biannual, biweekly, annual, or sometimes they only want partial articles or full articles, or they want you to be in an expose with different participants about a giant journal. It just really depends. And of course, they get to tell you the projected appearance of this issue, when you're going to be able to have a physical hard copy of it, or when it's going to be out there for the research community. And lastly, some of the most exciting ones are prizes. So these are sponsored by academic associations as well as government bodies. Most of it is just that they give out several prizes each year on the best paper that was submitted. And it usually recognizes the theme or the kind of research that association or society is celebrating. So for example, there could be a call for papers for new research in COVID. And what's going to end up happening is that they're going to pick the best paper that they've received and give that person a prize for their hard work. And it not only sends a signal for other people to submit their research, getting new ideas, helping the community, but it's also going to keep everyone up to date and that community stronger and getting the best information possible. And lastly, I want to talk to you about the quality of call for proposals, call for papers. And what I mean by quality is what you're actually submitting. So these are just some very general guidelines about what you're trying to do when you're submitting these papers. One of the first things you want to do is be very clear. My mother always said, say what you mean and mean what you say. You have to make sure that what you're putting down is as clearly as possible what your idea is, and that those ideas flow congenitally, that they go forward and they move forward and they make that point. And along with that, you want to be very concise. You have to make every word count. These word counts can be very serious. And sometimes if you're just a word over, they'll just throw it away. But you have to make sure that what the pressure isn't supposed to be for the word count. The pressure is to be as clear and concise as possible when you're making your argument. And you also want to be aware of who you're presenting this to, aware of who's going to be in that audience, who you're trying to talk to, who you're trying to push forward, like these ideas to. And, one of the greatest experience I had was I was at a conference, and it was a Miss American conference in UC Riverside. And I wasn't expecting a lot of people to be there, and it turns out the top Mayanists in the world were there, and I happened to meet some of them, and that was the craziest thing that I could have ever thought of, that the person I read in multiple textbooks had watched documentaries, and they were just all there just eating lunch with bagels. It was amazing. They're human. I didn't realize it, but they were. But those are the people you're going to be talking to. You're going to be talking to your graduate students, your fellow students, people younger, older, anyone who's interested in it. They're going to see your work and they're going to be amazed, because you're going to be putting your passion out there, and you're going to be clear and concise with your research. And lastly, you have to be knowledgeable. Speaking of research, you research, and research. You want to make sure your stuff is up to date. And that means being knowledgeable means connecting with your community. It means connecting with yourself about your ideas. And it also means that when you're writing this paper, you really want to take into account what you're doing. You're adding yourself to this community. You're being a part of it. And that means you want to put your best foot forward. You want to get that best experience that you can from putting your work out there and yourself out there. And that's truly what graduate school is all about, that even if it is just a piece of paper right now, it's going to mean more than that. It's your experience. It's your tears of joy, tears of pain. It's going to be everything that you're working towards in order to make your passion a reality. So that again is Call for Papers. And I really hope that you all think about applying or thinking of trying to go for it, because they are everywhere. They're online. They're online. Some of your schools will be posting them. You can ask your departments about it. So they are everywhere. You just got to look for the very specific requirements and the themes that you want. So happy Call for Papers hunting.
Bravo.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to me talk. Thank you all for being here. I'm so happy we could do this. I know that finals are approaching, and I just really appreciate you all taking this time today. I know it can be very overwhelming with school and with COVID, but I'm really glad you're all here so we can talk about this. And, this is a little bit of a pause. It doesn't mean the movie's over. It doesn't mean anything's over. It means that we're waiting, and we can wait as patiently as life wants, because we're going to get it. All right. So thank you all so much for being here. And we want to open up for questions, for comments, for anything you all want. Go for it.
I want to make a comment, if that's okay.
Sure, Sada, go ahead.
Oh, I saw in the chat earlier that Lada asked about a gap year, and I took a gap year as well. I did like 1 year, but I really recommend that just for sanity purposes. If school is really hard for you, I think taking a year just to collect the research of what programs you want to get into and what you for sure want to go forward with grad school, because if you just go into it just because you feel like you have to, you're just not going to enjoy it. I feel like that's with anything in life. I feel like you should just take your time and make sure it's something that you really want to do. And honestly, grad school isn't for everybody, and that's okay. Sometimes school is just not for people, and they're equally as successful and equally as great as intelligent as well. So I just want to put that in there as well. And you could go, Gabriel. Yes.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to all the people that presented, because it really opens up your eyes. Even myself, as already a graduate student, there are things that I've learned today from you that I haven't even really thought about, But I do want to mention to the people that may be undergrads that are thinking about grad school, I commend you for actually taking the time to do this. I can tell you, I didn't even get to one of these info webinars about the graduate school program. I had like no idea whatsoever. When I left my undergrad program, it was just kind of like, okay, I'm done. I don't, so I had to do a lot of this by myself, and I had like no support. So the fact that you are already taking that step to go and be like, hey, you know what, maybe I can do this. I might take a gap year, but at least I know that there are venues, that there are jobs, that there are things that I can do in the meanwhile. It really speaks highly of your interest and of your interest in your success. So I commend those of you that are here today doing the research. Thank you so much.
Agreed.
And world peace.
Thank you. Go
I just
ahead,
wanted
Jonas.
I just wanted to mention, you know, I towards the end of my talk, I said, you know, trust the system, trust the professors, etc. And what I was trying to say was, don't be afraid to ask for help. You know, that's the purpose of a professor, you know, in education and that environment. It doesn't mean don't stop being curious, don't don't follow people blindly, you know, but don't worry. These are the don't have the arrogance, you know, don't think that don't show up and thinking that you know it all, you know. So I think that just asking for help is a great way to go in graduate school. Anyway.
Yeah, just to add to what Jonas was saying, you know, even as a grad student, I'm still asking for help, especially for papers, how to go about research, you know, to all the undergrads that are here. Don't think because we're in grad, you know, that I'm in grad school, I know what to do all the time. No, that's not the case at all. And, you know, yeah, the pressure is on you more as a grad student, but you know, sometimes you are going to ask for help. So like Jonas said, you've got to, you know, trust the professors, you know, go to the writing center if you have to.
Alegria, there's a question for you.
Hi. So I have not taken any archaeology classes at Cal State LA, but I do know Dr. John Paul, Pohl. He is amazing. He's also spoken at many of our symposiums. He's a very good friend of Profe as well. He's a very fantastic teacher, and he actually wrote the foreword in Profe's book, The Handbook and Life of the Aztec World. And he's very well read. He knows his stuff. He will actually also be teaching some courses next spring semester, and I'll tell you about them. I'll tell you about them another time, only because I have them written down somewhere and I need to find them. But yeah, I'll definitely tell you soon, Robert.
I also want to mention when it does come to your graduate program, when I think Gabriel mentioned, he was like, make sure that you know you're gonna, all the requirements that you want for the program are going to be there. Don't settle for anything. I know that's out of our hands sometimes, so what we get into or not, but see it as a sign, because I know some people's first choice wasn't Cal State LA, but they got to meet a great group of people here. I knew my first choice was going to be here, and I knew that I was going to be in a great program, but I didn't know I was going to make such great friends, and I consider them family now, and we talk almost every day, and that's by choice. It's not because it's all about homework. It's just about deep discussions and our interests, and it's a wonderful feeling to know that people are experiencing the same thing, same experiences as you are at the same time, especially during this pandemic. And it is hard to go to grad school at this time, but having friends make it worth it and help keep you sane. So don't let things discourage you, like not making friends or anything, because I think you make closer friends, especially because there's going to be cohort systems and smaller classrooms in master's programs. So you'll definitely make friends.
Can I share a quick little story?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Do you mind, Laura? Yeah. I just wanted to me, this is a reminder of graduate school being a stepping stone. And it really relates actually, Marcos and Laura, to the career paths you showed, you know. And what it is my ex-wife, right? Our marriage didn't work out, but I really enjoyed watching her career unfold. When I met her, she had a bookstore. And then she had another bookstore, you know, and she was an English major from USC. And eventually the stores closed. And she said, I don't know what to do, but I really love art history. And I want to go to graduate school and see what comes out of it, you know. And she just went with the passion of, you know, she's interested in art. She's interested in reading. She's interested in museum studies. She just studied all that. And then she got a job at a publishing house, right? And she was an assistant editor. And then she became an editor of illustrated books, you know, and then she became the publisher at LACMA. And now she's the managing editor at the Getty, you know. And the cool thing is, this is a lady who had a bookstore, you know, and she sort of entered the art world sideways, and now she's in the heart of it, you know, and she's not the curator, she's not an artist, and she's not an art historian, but she's working with books that she loves, and she loves art, and now she has this amazing career. So I just wanted to put that out there that, you know, again, she just did the next indicated step and let her passion sort of drive the ship. So anyway, hope that helps.
I love that. I think Laura wanted to say something, or I wasn't sure.
Yeah, going off what Sara was saying earlier about having cohorts in the graduate program, you're going to be oftentimes having the same professors, the same classes with your cohorts. So you have to be in constant communication with them, especially in regards to assignments, or, you know, what does the professor expect? And you also have to talk to your professor as well. It can't be like undergrad where you kind of do your own thing and then just get your grade towards the end without talking to your professor. Although I did talk to my professors a lot when I was an undergrad, I'm very grateful that I got to do that, because I've heard at some institutions, you would have to talk to the TA versus the professor. And honestly, in grad school, it's very vital that you talk to your professors.
I completely agree, especially with COVID right now. But if communication wasn't important before, it is so important right now. And like, that's what, when you're in that graduate school, you're in undergrad, anywhere you are in your academic career, you want to be able to support yourself with other members of your community, because they're looking for that support too. I was very much someone, like, after my gap year, well, I graduated. I think I slept for like 6 months straight, and then I started applying for graduate school. But yeah, I was really scared. I was just terrified about graduate school, because I was so worried about what that would have meant as a new support group, as a new community. I had graduated from UC Riverside, and I was so far away from LA, where I'm from, and everything, and the environment. And I was so scared that I wouldn't be able to find a support group. But there is one there. It can be a fellow student. It can be someone in a different program, in a different major. It can be your professor. You know, that support group is always there. And especially with your professor in graduate school, you always want to be communicating what your interests are, where you're moving forward, because they are a wealth of information, just like our professor, Dr. Aguilar Moreno. You know, he has been a real rock for us here. And he's been the one pushing us forward and giving us that support. No matter what major we are, no matter what undergrad, graduate, he's always been there for us. So I encourage you to find someone like that in your program, or in a program that you want to join.
Well said.
Thanks. Is there any other questions, or anyone else like to add about grad school, about like our own experiences at all?
Oh, I'll let Marcos do it, since I
All right, I have one silly question now. Just to be clear, for the CALFA papers, when you apply for scholarly journals, would it also apply for like publications as well? If you want to apply for some sort of publication title or journal?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, okay, that's the answer. Okay, cool. I just wanted to be clear.
Oh no, my bad. No, I got cut off for a second. What I heard was you asking is it the same process? Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, if the CALFA papers will also apply for publications as well. If like you want to apply do a publication in the future, will that also entail the same information?
It'll be a little bit different depending on the publication itself, because every publication has their different kind of standards, just like with same every journal. But it will follow a very similar process, where you're going to have to send a proposal. You're going to have to send a kind of sample of your work. So that'll be either a paper, a proposal, an abstract. And then you're also going to be, you know, it depends on what opportunity these publications are asking for. If they're asking for, you know, articles or something on something specific, you can be like, I have this experience and I would like to share it with you. And then it's up to the publication saying, you know, how experienced are they? Do I really want this person in here? And then, you know, there'll be multiple steps. There might even be an interview saying, what do you think you can give to this publication? What kind of stuff you'd like to talk about in your sample? It really just depends on the organization. But most definitely, those organizations are looking for people because more and more, just like Lara was saying, when they're trying to get in the more digital field, they're trying to expand new horizons, and that it means new researchers. There will always be the greats. There will always be, Carl Top. There will always be Profe. And what ends up happening is that they will ask our professors, hey, do you know anyone who can do this, this, or this? And then our professors will be like, I know like 10 people. They're going to be great. You should have them published. You should have them present. You should give them a prize, So that's that kind of relationship that's going to be fostering going full circle. Yeah, Gabriel.
In addition to what you were discussing, I want to share a little anecdotal story that Alegria and I experienced just last November, actually, last November, December. We had the opportunity to attend a symposium at UC Riverside, and we had already done our symposium with the Getty, so we had already gotten to see the top 30 of the best Mesoamerican scholars, right? But we got to see other scholars that are focused on more specifically Mayan scholar work. And at some point I'm sitting, and I know this is like a total geek out moment, but I'm sitting with Alegria and I'm sitting next to Dr. Kim Richter from the Getty Research Institute. Dr. Mary Miller is behind us. And then like 2 seats ahead of us is David Stewart from the University of Austin, where he worked with Professor, with Profe. And you're sitting there and you're watching this, and I'm kind of going like, I'm like in the Super Bowl of scholar work. And, we even got to take a picture with David Stewart, and I was just kind of like looking at this guy. I'm thinking, I've seen you so many times on TV, in these documentaries. I read your books, and I just can't believe, and the fact that I could make those connections was really just incredible, because it made me realize that it's not that far off. It's not that far off. You have a dream, you can achieve it if you put your mind to it and you place yourself in the situations where you should be, So I'm very encouraged by that. I know that we are now speaking of this COVID issue because it's part of our new normal, but I encourage you to think about this idea of that after every pandemic, there's always been a renaissance. And perhaps it is our calling to create a renaissance of new art criticism, new art theories, new art practices, new methodologies to keep us going and go forward. Because as you know now, we are part of history. We are now part of history. We are now part of this incredible moment, whether good or bad. And it is up to us to continue that legacy of those who came before us and those who will come after us to do the work.
Absolutely. And world peace.
Yeah, what Gabriel said, I'm really happy that you and Alegria attended this symposium and got to meet wonderful academic people, people work in the field, and got to network, with them. And yeah, it's something that, it motivates you to do more, motivates you to be in the art field, because like you want that. You want to be around these people, you feel inspired by them. And yeah, thank you, Gabriel, for sharing that story about you and Alegria at Riverside. It's wonderful. I never knew that, but yeah, congrats.
It was an even funnier moment because we're sitting there and we're in awe, right? And then David Stewart starts presenting, and Gabriel, correct me if I'm wrong, he was presenting on the iconography of, were they copper or gold plates?
Gold plate.
It was the iconography on ceremonial gold plates that they were using in the Maya area. And it was so funny because you felt all of a sudden he was presenting and there was this new tension in the room. And we felt it the most from Dr. Kim Richter, who was beside us. And I remember just sitting there watching him And she was so furious. She was like shaking.
Why
And
did I
then,
see that? Yeah, she
yeah,
told me.
yeah, that's what she said. And she was upset at herself. She said, "Why didn't I see this? Why am I a failure?" Like she was so
Yeah.
upset with herself. And I'm like, to me, when Gabriel and I saw that, I was like, that's the research world. That's academia. It's the most, that was the most passionate moment I had seen in a scholar up until that point, because it was like Dr. Kim Richter is an established, well-respected art historian, preservationist. She works for the Getty. She is amazing, and she's looking at David Stewart with the most envious, furious glare. It was amazing because it's like, okay, this is great because I know that she's a human being, David Stewart's a human being. We're just all people trying to get this information out there. And that was like one of the most raw moments in a field that I love. I hope everyone has one of those experiences where they get to see their heroes and get to see them work with each other, because it's just amazing. It's really
Well,
great.
and also, I mean, just to continue, I'll give you another little moment. I know we have a lot of time, but I don't want to monopolize. Just in fact, Jonas, before the pandemic, he was like, we're getting ready for his exhibit, and he called me or something. He's like, hey, you want to have some coffee? We got some coffee, walked over to his studio, and then he was like, what do you think about this, this moment? And I saw the maquette, and I'm sorry, I know this is going to sound very selfish, but I got to see the exhibition like way before anybody did, because in that little maquette that he presented for me, we were talking, and there was this exchange of ideas, and he was like, what do you think about this, whatever, and I was just being not even a historian, I was just being an audience member, and I was like so in love with what I saw. I mean, mind you, we had already seen his incredible work, but the idea that I got to see this projected, this small version of this incredible work, and yet still feel as connected, it made me realize the power of art. It made me realize the power of communication. It made me realize the power of what it's like to go into this world, and that it's not just like, oh, well, you're an artist, you should just be painting. You could do installation, you could be an art critic, you could be an art theorist, you could be working for magazines that deal with art as a journalist, or whatever. So I want to just say that that was another little point that I just remembered. I was like, oh yeah, that's what I love about art, that we can create so much and not be limited. Remember, Jonas?
Yes, I do. Can I say two things on that? I had to respond very, very quick. One is I remember that experience. The biggest experience I remember in school was related to art history paper I had to write and the research. And we're talking about how the world is small. You were talking about your experience Riverside, and I just thought, I'm writing a paper on this artist who I admire. It was Andres Serrano. I don't know if you know his work. He did this famous piece called Piss Christ. And it occurred to me, like, why don't I just call him? And I didn't have his number, but I emailed him. I figured out his email, and his wife responded. I said, can I interview him? She goes, oh yeah, send 10 questions, And the cool thing is I learned a lot about myself in his responses, because he and I were doing similar work. And he said, your intentions are very strong, Jonas. Your intentions are very good. Your intentions, I think, are in the right place. It's a difficult thing. He goes, but don't forget about sincerity. And I really took that to heart. He goes, sincerity is a really hard thing to capture in art. Everyone has intentions, right? So to strike that balance of sincerity and intention was a really powerful lesson for me. And that's what I walked away with from school. And the only other thing is, I once showed my pieces to a curator at a big museum, curator of prints and drawings, art history, PhD. And I just asked her, I go, you ever taken a drawing class? No. You ever take a print class? No. It's sort of like, so I encourage all the art historians just to sort of walk in the art studio, pick up a brush, have that conversation, and because I think it'll bring you so much closer to where you want to go. Anyway, that's enough for me for today.
Jonas,
Yes.
I just want to say that I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that conversation between you and Andres Serrano. And also, like you said, you know, when I was an undergrad, I thought when you got an MFA in like sculpture or photography, your work was only in those mediums. And then I learned by looking at the MFA show, it's not the case. You know, there are people that, you know, have an MA or an MFA in sculpture, but they're also doing film or installation. So artists are multidisciplinary. You know, especially artists like, you know, Warhol. He didn't just do the silk screen, you know, he did film, he did other things, other mediums, photography. And I also would like to add on to, you know, asking an artist if they've taken, a drawing class and whatnot. You know, most of these artists, you know, didn't even go to art school. And, you know, from taking a 3D class and 3D design and sculpture, you know, it's really labor intensive, and it's not so much planning on what you're going to do in my eyes, but it's playing with material. And I learned while taking sculpture that it's not just wood and clay. You know, you can use found object, you can use steel, and also displaying art. It doesn't have to be in a gallery or on a pedestal. It could be outside. It could be on the roof. So I think it's important to show that art is way more than what people perceive it to be.
And just as I believe a lot of artists, like, you know, the Art History Society and taking art history classes made me a better artist. So I think it's really crossing back and forth. Anyway, thank you.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, Lada. Thank you for sharing that, Jonas, especially with the times that we're having now. It's really good to remind everyone and each other that we're here and that what support looks like and what art can mean to anyone and what art can mean to everyone. So that's really important. Thank you so much. Would anyone else like to comment or say anything? All right. Well then, thank you all for being here so much. I think we're gonna call it here. We're just gonna thank you again. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you so much to Marcos, to Sara, Lara, Jonas, Gabriel. Thank you all for being part of this. And thank you, Profe, for giving us the Art History Society so we can have these moments with each other as a group, as friends, and that we can talk to everyone as plainly as possible, as much as we can about graduate school. We really, I don't know if anyone got that, but the end result is please consider, try, move forward. You can do many things with your work. If you don't have work yet, you can figure it out. That's what this whole process is. It's exploration. And we'd really love if you try and contact us with any questions you have. We're on Facebook. We are on Instagram. You can also email us. We are the Art History Society of Cal State LA. Thank you again all for being here with us. And everyone have a great day.